Hey, I'm David Pakman, host of the David Pakman Show. Wanted to talk about George W. Bush and his new book. I've been watching a bunch of these interviews he's been doing. He was with Matt Lauer on NBC, and he did one with Oprah where he kissed Oprah. He was on Sean Hannity's show. He called Sean Hannity his buddy. No real surprise there. Some people have been telling me, you know what, I don't really hate George W. Bush as much anymore. Maybe it's just because he hasn't been in office for a couple of years. He doesn't strike me as that crazy anymore. And, you know, I was watching these interviews and I went through all of them. And honestly, I found it interesting. I found it entertaining. I was interested in George W. Bush's insight to a lot of the stuff that went on, 9/11, Katrina, financial crises, so on and so forth. But I have to say, while I get that same feeling that there's less of a visceral reaction to seeing George W. Bush on camera, the more I think about the things that happened during his presidency, I still have the same opinion, basically, about George W. Bush as a president. I think the difference is that people are finding it harder to dislike him as a person when you see him in this kind of more casual role, sitting in a church where he was married, talking to Matt Lauer. But I think it's skewing the way people are actually thinking about, well, what actually happened while he was president, if that makes any sense. No surprise that he did invent 2 new words during the Matt Lauer interview.
Oh, yeah, I know. There's a lot of psycho-Bible out there that, he and I compete. And psycho-Bible. Because it's hard for people to remember that right after 9/11, we were inundated with threats. Inundated with threats.
The thing that really caught my eye, though, in watching all these interviews is that he talks about the worst moments while he was president. And, you know, when we think about 9/11 and Katrina and all of the other things, those weren't his worst moments from his presidency. He talks about Kanye West, the rapper, and the time that Kanye West told George W. Bush, and what's on my list of the funniest moments involving George W. Bush, that George W. Bush doesn't care about black people. That is the worst moment for George W. Bush? Really?
Destruction of the spirit of the people of southern Louisiana and Mississippi may end up being the most tragic loss of all.
George Bush doesn't care about black people.
Please call.
I mean, so what George W. Bush is basically saying here is when he thinks back about 9/11 and Katrina, the decision to go to war in Iraq, which, by the way, ended up with the revelation that a lot of that intelligence was faulty and Colin Powell felt kind of pushed to use intelligence he didn't really think was that good. Those aren't the worst moments of George W. Bush's presidency. The financial disaster, the market crashing, the Dow reaching new lows, the U.S. losing the respect of the world, none of those things happening on Bush's watch are the worst. It's when Kanye West, a rapper, said that George W. Bush doesn't care about black people, that Bush said, again, one of the most disgusting moments of his presidency. And I know that defenders are already saying, well, he said it's one of the worst moments. How many moments are on that list? I mean, even if it's 10,000 worst moments, should Kanye West saying you don't care about black people really be on that list? I mean, has George W. Bush been on the internet? Does he know what people say about him? Even actors, even other people as well-known or more well-known than Kanye West? And that sticks out in his mind as one of the worst moments of his presidency. So I don't know if this means that George W. Bush is just completely out of touch. Maybe he just doesn't know who Kanye West is. Maybe he doesn't know that Kanye West is a rapper. Maybe he thinks he's some kind of, I don't know, diplomat from some other country or who knows. I can't really understand how that makes it onto his list.